Welcome to the Fluent Storybook, where stories breathe life into lessons and lessons transform destinies. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that will change the way you see failure, struggle, and success forever. This is a story about a young man named David, a potter's apprentice who learned the greatest lesson of his life through the most unexpected journey. It's a story about patience, persistence, and the profound truth that every trial counts. So, find a comfortable place, quiet your mind, and let me take you to a small village where miracles happen one broken pot at a time. The story begins. In a remote village at the edge of a great desert, there lived a master potter named Isaiah. His pottery was legendary. Kings and queens sent messengers from distant lands to purchase his work. His vases held water for 1,000 years without cracking. His bowls seemed to sing when you poured liquid into them. His sculptures captured emotions so perfectly that people wept when they looked at them. But Isaiah was growing old. His hands, once steady as stone, now trembled slightly. His eyes, once sharp as an eagle's, now struggled to see fine details. He knew he needed an apprentice, someone to carry on his craft after he was gone. Word spread throughout the village and beyond. Dozens of young people arrived at Isaiah's workshop, each hoping to be chosen. They brought gifts, showed their strongest muscles, and spoke eloquently about their passion for pottery. But Isaiah turned them all away. "They don't understand," he told his wife that evening. "They think pottery is about strong hand and artistic vision, but the secret of true pottery is something else entirely." "Then what are you looking for?" his wife asked. Isaiah smiled mysteriously. "I'll know when I see it." Weeks passed. The stream of hopeful apprentices slowed to a trickle, then stopped completely. Isaiah continued his work alone, his trembling hands creating beauty despite their weakness. Then one morning, a young man named David appeared at the workshop door. David was not impressive to look at. He was thin, almost fragile. His clothes were worn and patched. Dust covered his sandals from a long journey. But his eyes held something unusual, a deep, quiet determination mixed with humility. "Master Isaiah," David said, bowing respectfully. "I've traveled 3 weeks from the northern mountains to ask if you'll teach me your craft." Isaiah studied the young man carefully. "Why do you want to learn pottery?" David hesitated, then spoke from his heart. "When I was a child, my mother died. Before she passed, she held my hand and told me, 'David, find something in life that allows you to create beauty from dust, order from chaos, purpose from emptiness.' I didn't understand then. But 6 months ago I saw one of your vases in a merchant's stall. When I touched it, I felt something I can't explain. It was like the clay was alive, like it had a soul. And I knew this is what my mother meant." For a long moment, Isaiah said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You'll start tomorrow at dawn," he said. "But I must warn you, my teaching method is not what you expect. Many have quit. The path is long and often seems pointless. Can you accept this?" The first test. The next morning, David arrived before sunrise, eager and ready. Isaiah was already in the workshop, preparing clay. "Today," Isaiah said, "you will make a bowl." David's heart raced with excitement. His first creation. Isaiah showed him how to center the clay on the wheel, how to position his hands, how to apply pressure. David watched carefully, memorizing every movement. Then Isaiah stepped back. "Now you try." David sat at the wheel, placed the clay, and began. His hands shook slightly from nervousness. The clay wobbled. He pressed too hard, and the form collapsed. He tried again. The same result. Again, and again, and again. By midday, David had attempted 47 bowls. Not one succeeded. His back ached. His hands were raw. Clay covered his clothes and face. "Master," David said, exhausted, "I'm doing something wrong. Can you show me again?" Isaiah shook his head. "No, continue." David's frustration grew, but he obeyed. 50 attempts. 60. 70. As the sun began to set, Isaiah finally spoke. "Enough for today. Clean the workshop and go rest." David had expected praise or at least guidance. Instead, he got neither. But he cleaned the workshop thoroughly and left in silence.
The pattern emerges. The next morning, the same routine. "Make a bowl," Isaiah instructed. David tried, failed, tried again, failed again. This continued for 7 days. 7 long days of failure. David created nothing but misshapen lumps of clay. His hands developed calluses. His patience wore thin. On the 8th day, as David ruined his 93rd attempt, something inside him snapped. "Master!" he cried out. "This is impossible. I've tried hundreds of times. Nothing works. I'm not improving at all. Please just tell me what I'm doing wrong." Isaiah, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, stood up and walked over. His old eyes held compassion, but also firmness. "David," he said softly, "do you think you're wasting your time?" "I don't know," David admitted, tears of frustration in his eyes. "I want to learn, but I'm getting nowhere." Isaiah picked up one of David's failed attempts, a lopsided, collapsed bowl. He turned it slowly in his weathered hands. "Tell me," Isaiah said, "what did you learn from making this?" David blinked, confused. That I failed." "Look deeper," Isaiah urged. "What specifically went wrong?" David examined the ruined bowl. "I think I pressed too hard on the left side. The clay became too thin and couldn't support itself." "Good," Isaiah said. He picked up another failure. "And this one?" "This one, I didn't center the clay properly before beginning, so everything was off balance from the start." Isaiah nodded. "And this one?" "Too much water, the clay became too soft." Isaiah smiled. "You see, you haven't been failing, David. You've been learning. Each of these mistakes taught you something, but you were so focused on success that you couldn't see the progress." David stared at the collection of ruined bowls scattered around the workshop. Suddenly, they looked different to him, not like failures, like lessons.
"Master," David said slowly, "how many bowls did you ruin before you created your first successful one?" Isaiah's eyes twinkled. "Thousands, my boy, thousands. And each one taught me something that made me the potter I am today." Something shifted in David's heart. He understood now. This wasn't about creating one perfect bowl. This was about the journey of 10,000 imperfect attempts. "I am ready to continue," David said with a new determination. Isaiah smiled. I know you are. That's why you're my apprentice. The long journey. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. David made bowls every single day. Most were failures. Some were almost acceptable. A rare few were actually usable. But Isaiah's teaching remained minimal. He rarely offered corrections. He never demonstrated techniques again. He simply said, "Continue." Sometimes David wanted to scream with frustration. Why wouldn't the master teach him properly? Why this endless repetition? But he had made a promise, so he continued. 3 months in, David created his first truly beautiful bowl. His hands had finally learned the right pressure, the right touch. When he pulled it from the wheel, perfect and symmetrical, he felt a surge of pride. He showed it to Isaiah, expecting finally to receive praise. Isaiah examined the bowl carefully. Then he handed it back to David and said, "Good. Now make another." David's pride deflated slightly, but he made another bowl, and another, and another. 6 months passed. David's skills improved dramatically. His bowls were now consistently good. His hands moved with growing confidence. He began to understand the clay, how it responded to heat, to moisture, to touch. One morning, Isaiah appeared with a new challenge. "From today," he announced, "you will make vases." David's heart sank. Vases were far more complex than bowls, taller, requiring more precision, more skill. And so the cycle began again. Collapsed vases, cracked vases, lopsided vases. David wanted to complain that he had just mastered bowls. Why move on so quickly? But he remembered the lesson. Every trial counts. Every failure teaches. So he made vases, hundreds of them. Months passed, then 1 year, then 18 months. David's hands were no longer the hands of a novice. They moved with increasing mastery. His eye could judge proportions perfectly. His intuition for the clay had deepened into something almost mystical. But still, Isaiah gave minimal instruction. Still, he said only, "Continue." The breaking point. After 2 years of endless work, David reached his breaking point. It happened on an ordinary morning. David was making his daily vases when suddenly his hands stopped moving. The clay spun on the wheel, but David just stared at it, motionless. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered. Isaiah, sitting in his usual corner, looked up. "Why not?" "Because it never ends." David's voice rose with emotion. "For 2 years, I've worked every single day. I've made thousands of pieces. My skills have improved, yes. But to what purpose? You never tell me if I'm doing well. You never explain the deeper techniques. You just say, 'Continue, continue, continue.' I feel like I'm going in circles, Master. When does the real teaching begin?" Isaiah stood slowly, his old joints creaking. He walked to a large cabinet in the corner of the workshop, one that had always remained locked. For the first time in 2 years, Isaiah opened it. Inside were shelves filled with pottery. But these were unlike anything David had ever seen. They glowed with an inner light. Each piece seemed alive, breathing with energy and beauty. "Do you know what these are?" Isaiah asked softly. David shook his head, mesmerized. These are my masterpieces. Each one took me months to create. Each one required every technique, every lesson, every bit of wisdom I have accumulated in 50 years of pottery. Isaiah pulled out a vase so beautiful that David gasped. It seemed to capture the essence of flowing water, frozen in ceramic form. "Do you know when I gained the ability to create this?" Isaiah asked. "After many years of training?" David guessed. "No," Isaiah said. "I gained this ability the moment I stopped counting my failures and started valuing them. I gained this ability when I understood that every single trial, every collapsed bowl, every cracked vase, every frustrating day, was building something inside me that no amount of instruction could create." Isaiah placed the vase in David's hands. "Feel it," he instructed. David held the vase carefully, and suddenly he felt it. The piece wasn't just clay. It was patience made solid. It was wisdom given form. It was thousands of trials transformed into beauty. "David," Isaiah continued, "I could have given you detailed instructions from day one. I could have corrected every mistake, guided every movement, but that would have created a copycat, not a potter. The real craft isn't in the techniques. It's in the wisdom you gain from 10,000 trials. It's in the patience you develop from 10,000 failures. It's in the intuition you build from 10,000 lessons that clay itself teaches you." Tears filled David's eyes as understanding flooded through him. "Every trial counted," he whispered. "Every single one," Isaiah confirmed. "The bowls you made on day one, when your hands didn't know what they were doing, those trials taught you humility. The vases you made 6 months ago, when you thought you had mastered basics, those trials taught you that mastery is endless. The piece you'll make tomorrow, even if it fails, will teach you something you don't yet know you need to learn." Isaiah placed a gentle hand on David's shoulder. "This is why I chose you, David. Not because you were talented, not because you were strong, but because when you spoke of your mother's words, I heard someone who understood that beauty comes from the journey through dust. Order comes from experiencing chaos, and purpose comes from embracing emptiness. You had the soul of a true craftsman before you ever touched clay." The transformation. From that day forward, everything changed for David, not in what he did, but in how he saw it. He continued making pottery every day. Some pieces still failed. Some were merely adequate. Some were beautiful. But now, David cherished each one equally. The failures became his greatest teachers. The successes became milestones showing how far he'd traveled. And the process itself became meditation, prayer, and joy combined. 3 years into his apprenticeship, David created his first true masterpiece. He hadn't planned it. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was simply centering clay on the wheel as he had done 10,000 times before, when suddenly his hands seemed to move of their own accord. They moved with a wisdom beyond his conscious thought. They moved with the accumulated knowledge of every trial, every failure, every lesson. They moved with confidence born from embracing uncertainty. When the vase was complete, David sat back and stared at it in wonder. It was alive, just like Isaiah's work. The clay breathed with energy. Isaiah walked over, examined the piece, and for the first time in 3 years, he smiled widely. "Now you understand," he said simply. David nodded, tears streaming down his face. Every trial counted, every single one. I couldn't have made this without every failure that came before it. They're all part of this vase, aren't they? All my mistakes, all my frustrations, all my moments of wanting to quit, they're all here, transformed into beauty. Yes, Isaiah said softly. That's the secret of mastery. It's not about avoiding trials. It's about collecting them, learning from them, and allowing them to transform you. The potter who has failed 1,000 times can create things the naturally talented person never will. Because true art isn't born from talent, it's born from trials. The master becomes the teacher. Years passed. David continued learning from Isaiah until the old master's hands could no longer shape clay. When Isaiah passed away peacefully one autumn evening, David inherited the workshop. Now, David was the master potter. And like Isaiah before him, his work became legendary. People traveled from distant lands to purchase his pottery. They marveled at how his pieces seemed alive, how they captured emotions in ceramic form. Young people arrived at his workshop, hoping to become his apprentice. And David, remembering his own journey, chose carefully. He didn't look for the most talented or the most confident. He looked for something else, the willingness to embrace trials. When he finally found the right student, a young woman named Sarah with humble eyes and determined spirit, he began teaching exactly as Isaiah had taught him. "Today," David told her on her first day, "you will make a bowl." Sarah tried, failed, tried again, failed again. After 3 days of failures, Sarah approached David with frustration in her voice. "Master, I'm not improving. Am I wasting my time?" David smiled, seeing himself in her question. He walked to his cabinet and pulled out a misshaped, lopsided bowl, one of his very first attempts from years ago. He had kept it all this time. "Do you think this was a waste?" he asked Sarah. She examined the ruined bowl, confused. "This bowl," David said gently, "taught me that I pressed too hard on one side. That lesson lives in every piece I've created since. Without this failure, I couldn't have made the masterpieces that people travel months to purchase. So, was it a waste?" Sarah slowly shook her head, beginning to understand. "Every trial counts," David told her. "Every single one. The bowls you're making now feel like failures, but they're building something inside you that nothing else can build. Trust the process. Trust the trials. They're preparing you for greatness you can't yet imagine." Sarah nodded, and David saw the shift happen in her eyes, the same shift that had happened in his own eyes years ago. She returned to the wheel with new understanding. And though her bowls still collapsed, though her hands still trembled with inexperience, she approached each attempt differently now, not as a failure to avoid, but as a lesson to embrace. The lesson for you. Now, my friend, you might be wondering, what does this story have to do with me? What does pottery have to do with learning English or pursuing my dreams? Everything. You are David. I am David. We are all David, standing at the pottery wheel of life, trying to create something beautiful from dust. And every trial you face, every English sentence that comes out wrong, every conversation that feels awkward, every moment of wanting to quit is exactly like David's collapsed bowls. They feel like failures. They feel like wasted effort. But they're not. Every mispronounced word is teaching your mouth the right movements. Every grammar mistake is showing your brain the correct patterns. Every uncomfortable conversation is building your confidence muscle. You cannot skip this process. You cannot jump from day one to mastery. The trials are not obstacles blocking your path. They are the path. Think about it. If David had quit on day 8 when he thought he was making no progress, he would never have become a master potter. If he had given up after 6 months when Isaiah pushed him to start making vases, he would never have created his masterpieces. The breakthrough came not despite the trials, but because of them. Every single one mattered. Every single one counted. The same is true for you. Maybe you've been studying English for months and feel like you're not improving. But I promise you, underground growth is happening. Every word you learn, even if you forget it and have to learn it again, is strengthening neural pathways. Every listening exercise, even if you don't understand everything, is training your ear. Every speaking attempt, even if it feels clumsy, is building fluency. Maybe you've failed at something 10 times and want to give up. But remember, Edison tried 10,000 times before inventing the light bulb. David made thousands of bowls before creating his first masterpiece. Your 10th attempt isn't a sign you should quit. It's a sign you're 10 trials closer to success. Maybe you look at fluent English speakers and think, they're so lucky, they make it look easy. But you don't see their thousands of trials. You don't see the years of mistakes, the embarrassing moments, the frustrations. You only see the masterpiece, not the collapsed bowls that came before it. Here's what I want you to understand. Every trial is making you stronger, wiser, and more capable. Not a someday. Right now. Today. This moment. The conversation you had yesterday that felt awkward. It taught you something. The test you didn't pass. It showed you what to study. The word you keep forgetting. Your brain is learning it more deeply with each repetition. Nothing is wasted. Every trial counts. Your choice. So, here's your choice, friend. You can see your trials as enemies, as proof that you're not good enough, that you should quit, that success isn't meant for you. Or you can see your trials as Isaiah's teaching method, as the only path to true mastery, as lessons that are building something beautiful inside you, as evidence that you are on the right path. The choice is yours. But I want you to remember David. Remember how close he came to quitting. Remember how he thought 2 years of work was pointless. Remember how wrong he was. His breakthrough came not when the trials ended, but when he changed how he saw them. Your breakthrough will come the same way. So today, I want you to make a promise to yourself. Promise that you won't give up. Promise that you'll see every trial as a teacher, not a tormentor. promise that you'll trust the process, even when progress feels invisible. And most importantly, promise that you'll remember this truth. Every trial counts, every single one. The English word you'll forget tomorrow, it counts. The conversation that will make you feel embarrassed next week, it counts. The day you'll want to quit, it counts. Because all of these trials are not separate from your success. They are the substance of your success, just like David's collapsed bowls were the substance of his masterpieces. You are becoming something beautiful. You are transforming from dust into art. And every trial is shaping you, teaching you, preparing you for the moment when your hands, whether literal or metaphorical, will move with the wisdom of 10,000 lessons. That moment is coming, I promise you, but only if you don't quit before it arrives. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for listening to this story. And thank you for trusting the process of your own journey. Remember David. Remember that every trial counts. And when you want to give up, when you think you're making no progress, when the wheel of life throws your efforts into chaos, remember that somewhere, somehow, you're building roots like bamboo, you're learning like Edison. You're shaping a masterpiece like a potter. The trials aren't stopping you from reaching your destination. The trials are the destination. Keep going, my friend. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. Until next time, this is the Fluent Storybook, reminding you that your story is still being written, and every chapter, even the difficult ones, matters. Every trial counts.